guys, my name is Jessie Jennings and I'm a content creator here at Plaid, and welcome to PlaidFX Tip Tuesday. We've been going live on the PlaidFX Facebook page every couple of weeks, just showing you guys tips, tricks, and creative ways to use PlaidFX flexible acrylic paints. So today I'm really excited to be talking a little bit about color mixing. So I know a lot of you guys when you're painting your cosplay, sometimes you can get stumped trying to figure out certain colors you want, or when you're using PlaidFX paints, there might not be an exact color that you're looking for. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about color mixing and how you can use PlaidFX paints to get any color that you could possibly want. We'll be talking a little bit about how to neutralize colors if you want a more natural look, because our colors are very pigmented. And we'll also be talking about how to create lighter tones and darker tones for creating dimension on your pieces. So let's go ahead and get started. So this is probably something that a lot of you already know. We learned this, of course, in school. But this is the color wheel. So this probably looks really familiar to you guys. So just as a quick refresher, I'm going to start by talking about the color wheel real quick so you guys can have kind of a base ground to go off of as we keep talking about colors. So, of course, we've got our three primary colors, and those are blue, yellow, and red. And the thing to remember about primary colors is that they can't be mixed. So these are three colors that just have to be pure. You have to purchase them. You have to have the pure pigment. You cannot mix these colors. Of course, you can mix variations of these colors, but these colors can't be mixed with other colors. So right here, as far as PlaidFX goes, I've got Fool's Gold, Beta Blue, and Pyro, as you can see, are really great representations of those colors. So then between those, of course, we've got green. So here I mixed Beta Blue and Fool's Gold to get green. I mixed Pyro and Fool's Gold to get orange. And I mixed Beta Blue and Pyro to get this violet color. So again, just something to think about. I'm sure you guys all know this already. This is just really simple color mixing, but just something to keep in mind when you're trying to mix colors for your particular cosplay. So once we get past the primary colors and then the secondary colors that I just mentioned, there's also something called tertiary colors, which, it's really not that big of a deal. It's kind of obvious, but these are the colors on the color wheel between primary and secondary. So for example, we've got our Beta Blue here, we've got our green here, and between that is blue-green. And then we've got our green here and our Fool's Gold, and between that is going to be yellow-green. So again, kind of just common sense. It's just a mixture of the two colors, but again, just something to keep in mind when you're thinking about color mixing. I also want to tell you guys, I always forget this, we are live in the studio, so we've got Emma Panuski here answering all of your questions in the chat. So if you have any questions or comments, I'd be happy to do my best to answer them. If you've got a specific cosplay you're working on, please put it down in the chat and I'll try to answer them live. Hey guys. Hey Emma. I always forget to say that. Okay, so coming up this summer, we have some really, really fun content going on. So Emily Schmidt of Go Big or Go Home Cosplay has making some really exciting pieces that are going to kind of end up with a really awesome finale piece at the end of the summer. So we're going to be talking a lot about natural elements. So leaves and flowers and wood and bark and things like that. So like I said earlier, our PlaidFX paints are super pigmented. And of course we have browns and we have greens, but even those are really bright. When we were coming up with these colors, we were thinking of comic book characters, like the Avengers and anime and things like that. Lots of bright colors. We wanted you guys to have really bright colors to make with your cosplay, because while it's hard to mix bright colors, it's easy to tone them down into more neutral colors. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of that now to kind of let you guys know some really simple ways that you can take just a few colors, a handful of PlaidFX colors, and get any color you could possibly want. So I've got some handy dandy visual aids. So here, I'm going to show you guys here how I mixed these. So to start, okay, so this is Charred Root. So a lot of times this is like a nice dark brown color that we have in our FX line. So of course when you're thinking about green, you can mix green, of course. When you're thinking about green, a lot of people would add brown to it, which is a great way to desaturate your green. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I would do that. So of course I'm going to start with my yellow. Oops. I'm just going to mix it all right here so you guys can see it really well. I start with some of my yellow, and again, I'm using Fool's Gold today for my yellow color. Oops, and then I'm going to add some of my Beta Blue, which I'm using to represent my pure blue color today. And just a little tip whenever you're color mixing, especially if you're doing experimenting, I oftentimes mix with my brush. It's really simple to do, and as long as you clean your brush really well afterwards, it's not a big deal, but it's really even better to protect your brushes to use something like a palette knife. You can find these really inexpensively at any art store, any craft store. Like it's like cents. They're super cheap. And that way you can protect your brushes. A lot of times when you try to mix with your brushes, it gets into the ferrule, which is the metal part on the brush, and it kind of stays in there and it dries in there, and just over time your brush won't last as long. So whenever I'm doing like big batches, if I'm mixing lots of paint at a time and I'm like kind of saving it, if I'm doing a big build or something like that, I'll make sure to use a palette knife. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab just 1 part yellow and 1 part blue. I'm going to make a little bit of a mess here today. And I'm going to mix those together. So I've got about a 1-to-1 ratio, and then we can kind of go from there. And it's also important to think too, whenever you think about color mixing, or if you're doing research and learning about color theory and all of that, they're always referring to like pure pigmented colors. And that's hard to find in acrylic paint. So of course ours aren't pure pigmented, but we can get really close using PlaidFX acrylic paints. So we got a nice little green color. It's kind of blue still, so it's a little bit of instinct. It's a little blue, so that tells me I'm going to add a little more yellow to get a nice medium green color.
And just for those of us who don't know at home what a pure pigment is.
So that's just like the purest form of any color. So of course, like, you know, in the beginning of painting, in the beginning of art, people were creating their own paints. They're using pure pigments like from nature, like indigo and things like that. So those are kind of, you know, what we're basing them off of. That's kind of like how paint began and how people were making their own paint. So we think of pure pigments, we're thinking of like that indigo and like cadmium yellow, cadmium red, you know, things you can find in oil paints and even in acrylic paints, like in artist acrylic paints. You can get those really pure colors that are better for mixing. But PlaidFX for cosplay is actually really pigmented colors, so it's also really easy to mix. Okay, so you can see here we've got a really nice green. So I love this green. It's like an emeraldy green. But if I were going to go and paint, you know, like a leaf or a forest or something, and I wanted it to look really natural, this isn't a super natural green, if you know what I mean. It needs to be a little bit toned down. This isn't really what greens look like. Maybe a cartoon leaf, but not a real leaf in nature. So I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that you can tone down a green like this. So like I said, you can absolutely, of course, use brown. That's kind of just like the easy, obvious way to do it. So I've got some Charred Root here, which is a nice like chocolatey brown color. So I'm going to put a little bit of that and show you guys how that will work to tone it down.
And just before you do that, we have a question from Gab. Gab
Sure.
wants to know, is there any specific way to apply the paint with minimal brush marks?
Oh, that's a great question. So PlaidFX is super, it's really kind of hard to get brush strokes in it. It self-levels really well, and what that means is whenever you put it onto a surface, you can see here it's kind of spreading. Even when you paint it on, it's going to spread, and that's going to allow the brush strokes to spread. So it does self-level really well. But if you're still having trouble and you feel like you're still getting brush strokes, I would recommend, so say this is my surface, instead of applying my paint like this with my brush perpendicular, try to keep your brush almost parallel to your surface and do a really light touch, and make sure you're using a soft bristled brush. And that's really going to help you keep those brush strokes out.
Great, Jess. And Gab, if you're still having trouble too, I know a few months ago we did a whole series on airbrushing.
We did, yeah, that's a great point. So I believe it was March, we talked all about airbrushing. So we've got some lives and we've got lots of great TikToks and Reels and stuff, so make sure to check out all of the content we have. But yeah, I did a couple of live tutorials that month showing you how to use PlaidFX through an airbrush. So super simple to do. We just use some window cleaner to thin it down. So make sure to go check those out to learn a little bit about that. Great point, Em. Okay, so now we've got our green that we've mixed, and I put a little bit of my Charred Root down, and I'm going to pick up some of my green and add just a little bit of my Charred Root, just a tiny touch to show you how this will sort of tone it down. You can see hardly any, and make it a little more natural looking. Let's start with a little. I always like to start with a little and then add more as I go. Don't forget, just like anything when you're mixing, you can always add more, but you can't take any out. So to save paint, always just add a little bit at a time. So it's definitely starting to get more toned down, but I'm going to put a little more brown, a little more of my Charred Root. You can see we're really getting like a nice like ivy hunter green now. It's looking way more realistic, like a green you would actually find in nature. So again, if you're doing some sort of, you know, wood nymph or like a poison ivy and you want it to look really realistic or something like that where you have a lot of greens going on and you want to see really natural greens, this is a really simple and quick way to tone down your green.
So Jess, here's a question that it's a problem that I run into often. Sometimes when I mix a color and I run out of that color that I mixed, I find it hard to recreate that color again.
Yeah.
Any tips for that?
So the more you mix colors, the easier it'll get, and the easier it'll be to remember what you did. So I've been mixing colors for a long time because I think of myself as a painter. So it's easier for me to look at a color and know exactly what colors I got to make it. But if you're just starting out color mixing, I really recommend, writing it down. If you have a color you really like, keep in mind, try to remember ratios of what you use to put into that color. So I would put, 2 parts green, and I would write a dab of brown or something. And so I can go back later. I would definitely keep a little swatch of this, take a picture, or just, put it on a little note card or something so you can remember the exact color, what it looked like. And then I'll try to write it down so I can always go back and remember how to remix that color.
I love that swatch idea. Thanks, Jess.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so you've got this really pretty green now. So now I'm going to show you how you can neutralize a color or sort of desaturate a color using the color wheel again, using primary colors without having to get brown involved. So I'm going to go back to our original little color wheel here. So this is the green. You saw we mixed this green here using our Fool's Gold and Beta Blue. We mixed that green. So what you can do to neutralize it is go across the color wheel and add a little bit of the opposing color, and that will neutralize it as well. So for green, we're going to go straight across, and we're going to add some red. So I'm going to go ahead, and I've got Pyro here to represent our red today. Really beautiful, bright red color. I actually need a little bit. You can see I'm hardly using any, just for color mixing. I'm going to pick up some of my green, and then I'm going to put a little dab of red. Don't forget, I'm going to start small. And this red is going to help to desaturate this color because it is across from green on the color wheel, and that is why it is doing this. Adding a little bit more as I go, but it is totally, totally toning it down into a much more natural green. And the reason that this kind of works is that brown is sort of a variation of red. It's just a much darker version of red, so that's why this is kind of working. But it works for orange and blue, and for yellow and violet. You can use those colors to desaturate each other. Okay, so you can see here I have a much more realistic and much more natural green than what we started with. So just a couple of different ways to do it. Also good to know, I kind of mentioned this in the beginning, whenever you, if you had like very, very pure pigments, technically, in theory, if you mixed all 3 of the primary colors together, you would have all the colors and you would get black. But usually when we're painting, we don't have super duper pure pigments, so you'll usually get brown. But I use that to my advantage. If I don't have brown, you just mix all 3 of the primary colors together. So again, that's yellow, blue, and red, and you're going to get brown. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to grab some blue. So again, if you don't have the right brown, or you just ran out of brown, or you don't have brown, this is just a really easy way to get it. I oftentimes, when I'm painting, I don't even buy brown because I can just mix it so easily using all the colors that I have. I'm going to grab some yellow, and we're going to mix these. I have 1 part of each right now, and we'll kind of add more as we go if we need it. So it's getting a little bit gray. I feel like we have a lot of blue in there. That's what kind of tells me. Since it's a little bit more cool, that's how I know that we have more blue than the other colors. So really quick too, I didn't mention this at the beginning. It's really helpful to know also, about warm colors and cool colors. So on the color wheel, we've got all of our warm colors on this side and our cool colors on this side. So our warm colors are yellow, orange, and red, and then our cool colors are green, blue, and violet. So that's kind of where the color wheel is separated as far as that goes. So another important thing to keep in mind. So whenever you've got like browns or grays, sometimes it's a warm gray and sometimes it's more of a cool gray. So if you want it to be a little bit cooler, you'll add some blue. If you want it to be a little bit warmer, you'll add red or yellow. So just again, things to keep in mind when you're mixing natural colors.
And that makes so much sense, Jess, when you're looking at the color wheel, because sometimes too I find myself looking at like warm yellows and cool yellows, and same goes for purple because they're right on that edge.
Definitely, definitely. It's really important to note. So also, there's like warm reds and cool reds too. Again, when you're getting into like really pure pigments. And so that's why you really need a cool red to mix violet. So sometimes violet's a little bit tricky. You can get muddy. If you're trying to mix like a really beautiful like violet, like purple color, you have to make sure you really have the right red. Pyro here is a super warm red. So if we were trying to mix it with our blue, again, not perfectly pure pigments, our purple is going to be slightly muddy, but that's okay. We have a really beautiful purple color in the PlaidFX line, so you don't have to worry about it.
And Jess, Gab has another interesting questions about the FX product. They wanted to know, is it a problem when the little label from the inside of the cap comes out of your paint? Do you need to keep that in there?
No, you don't need to keep it in there. Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. why that's in there is for shipping purposes, just to keep it really intact while it's shipping so it doesn't spill when it's getting to the store or just, in the truck or however, if you're ordering it online, any part of the way we don't want it to spill. So that's why that label's in there. So if you take it out, it's not a big deal. It's kind of up to you. Okay, guys, so I can see here now I'm getting a little bit green, and that tells me I need to add more red to get my nice neutral brown. Okay, so now we're starting to get this nice brown color. And all we did here was mix red, yellow, and blue, our 3 primary colors, and you'll get brown. I need to get a little more red. A little more red, which again, we're using Pyro to represent our red color. We get this really nice brown now. You can see it's starting to get, we added more red because it was getting a little bit cool. It's getting a little bit greenish. So of course, if we don't want it to be green, we look across the color wheel, means we need to add more red. So that's why we did that. And now it's really starting to look more like a nice brown color. You can see it right here next to our actual charred root, how similar those two are, how easy it was to mix. All right, guys, so hopefully that helps you guys out. I know sometimes it can be a little bit intimidating when you're trying to mix colors, or if you can't find the exact color you're looking for in a paint line. So PlaidFX has dozens of colors. I'm sure we really tried our best to pick colors that we knew you guys would need for your cosplays based on, the particular fandom that you're cosplaying. But if there's that one tricky little color you can't find, now you can see how easy it is to mix them. So really quick before we wrap it up, I've got a couple more things to show you. I'm going to show you a little bit about how to, using sort of this same method we just did, how to lighten colors and how to darken colors to add dimension to your cosplay. So I'm going to show you this great example. So this is part of our Captain FX build that was made by Emily Schmidt of Go Big or Go Home Cosplay. And you can see here how much dimension she added to it. So this is just using our PlaidFX paints. She didn't airbrush it, she just used a brush. But she used colors in a way that makes it look super dimensional. And the way she did that is, I guess we'll do the red today to show you guys. She took Pyro as her main, can you see it on the overhead? She took Pyro as her main color, so that's the red we've been using, that nice bright red. And then she used, she darkened it to make some shadow color, and then she lightened it to make a really pigmented bright color in the middle. So I'm going to show you guys just kind of how she did that. So again, we've got Pyro here, so that was her main color. I'm going to move down here a little bit so I've got some more space. Okay, so we've got Pyro there. So like I said, you can't mix red. So you need to kind of decide if you want it to be more of a pinky color for your highlight or if you want it to be sort of an orangey color for your highlight. So if you want it to be more pinky, you go ahead and add white, and I'll show you guys. Of course, we all know that, white and red make pink, but I'll just show you guys so you have a visual. So I've got my Pyro, and I've got a little bit of white right here, a little bit of Blizzard, and I'll mix those together. So you could use something like this for your highlight color, which is definitely a lighter version of red. We've just added white. Or you could add some yellow to get a warmer version of this light red. So I'll put some Pyro, and then I'll grab some of my Fool's Gold.
And Jess, if you were trying to add dimension to a build that was, let's say, blue, would you choose the same 2 colors to choose from, white and yellow?
That's a great question, Emma. So you could definitely use, white and yellow. If you used yellow, of course, again, looking at our color wheel, if you use yellow and mix it with blue, you'd start getting into the green area, which is kind of what we're doing now. We're getting a little bit orangey to lighten it. So it's totally up to you. You could add white to make it sort of a light blue, or you can add, just like we did here with the pink, or you could add yellow and make it a little bit on the green side, but it'll still be brighter. So you can see here how that would be a really cool highlight for this red, or you could go with the white option, and that's also a good highlight. It just kind of depends on the look you're going for. And now to darken it, we're kind of going back to what we talked about in the beginning. So I'm going to grab some of my red, and you guys may be able to guess what I'm going to use to start darkening it. So we'll take a peek at our color wheel. We need some green. So here's our red. What's across from it to darken it? We're going to grab some of our green. So I'm going to grab some of this green that we already mixed. Oops, starting to dry. And mix that in. And I have more red than I have green.
And just while you're mixing, Gap has another great question. They wanted to know what would be the best method to seal the paint if it's on Worbla, keeping the flexibility and non-tackiness. They wanted to know if varnish would work.
Yeah, you could definitely use varnish. You just want to make sure whatever kind of varnish you're using that it is flexible, and that can be kind of hard. In our PlaidFX line, we have our PlaidFX Clear Primer, which was made to seal foam before painting on it, just so it doesn't absorb the paint as you're painting. But it also works really well as a sealer. So you can use our PlaidFX Clear Primer as a sealer as well, because it's super clear, and of course it's flexible, just like the rest of our paints. So I would definitely try that as well. Okay guys, so you can see now here, we have a really dark version. So we've got kind of like our main color here, our red. We've got our two lighter options, and then we added green to get this. It's like a burgundy color here. Let's add a little bit more red. It's like a brownish burgundy color that would be really great for some of these shadows, just like Emily did here. Oops. In our Captain FX. Mix it up really good. You can see here she has that nice dark red right in the corners there to give you that dimension. So again, whenever you want to lighten a color, you can add white, of course, or you can add whatever color is the lighter color of the two that made it up. So hopefully, does that make sense?
Yes.
So again, if you're using red, if you want to lighten it, or I'm sorry, if you have like orange and you want to lighten it, you're going to use yellow because you had red and orange to make it, and yellow is the lighter of the two, or you can use white. And then to darken it, you're going to mix in a little bit of whatever color is across from it on the color wheel. So again, hopefully that makes sense.
This lesson is definitely going to make me start looking at builds more critically to see all the different colors they're adding to create that dimension.
Like the more colors you add and the more details you add and the more variations of color you add, just the more realistic your build's always going to look. Okay, so I have one more thing that I want to talk about as far as color mixing, and this is a question we get all of the time that also kind of trips people up, which I totally understand why, and that is how to mix metallic paints. So we've got a really awesome line of paints called our Armor Metallics. They're super duper shiny. They're also really highly pigmented. And we've got great colors. We've got a red, a blue, a green, a yellow. But sometimes there's a specific color for a specific cosplay that we may not have, and you want to mix it. So my main advice for mixing with our Armor Metallics is never to mix it with a flat color. And the reason you don't want to do that, so for example, if I have this, this is called Saber Blue. And this is a nice metallic blue color. I'll pour some out. If I've got my Saber Blue here, and I want a lighter version of it, if you mix just regular white, which would be our Blizzard in this case, you'll definitely get a light blue, but what's going to happen is you're going to take away some of that shine. So the white is going to overpower it. The flat color is going to overpower the metallic color. And you can see we've got a pretty light blue color here, but it's not really metallic anymore. We kind of took away that shine because we used a flat paint in it. So I just want to point out to you guys, we have really great metallics in white and black. So our white metallic is called New Liberty, and our black metallic is called Gauntlet. So I'll show you when I mix New Liberty, our white metallic, into the blue, how it turns lighter, but you still keep that really awesome metallic sheen that I'm sure is what you're looking for if you're using the Armor Metallics in your cosplay.
Hey Jess, and would you mind putting your palette, just scooch it up a little bit, the captions are
yeah, totally. Is that better?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I've got my Saber Blue. I'm mixing some New Liberty, which is our white metallic, in there. And you can see we're going to get a really nice, I hope you can see the shine on camera. We're going to get a really nice, pretty light blue, just like we got the first time. But this time it stays metallic because we didn't mix any flat colors into it. We used another metallic to lighten it. So you can see here we got a really beautiful metallic light blue now. Awesome. All right, guys, so that is it for our cosplay color mixing session. I hope you guys learned a little something. I hope you guys got some tips for your next cosplay when you're trying to mix really specific colors for your character. We try to go live in this group every couple of weeks, to give you tips and tricks. If you aren't already following us, we've got a really great PlaidFX TikTok. We put lots of amazing videos and tutorials on there, so make sure to check that out. We also have a really great Facebook group, so we're on our PlaidFX page now. But head on over to our PlaidFX Facebook group and join. We've got lots of great people there sharing their cosplays and just their fan art and all kinds of great things. A great community of people just chatting and getting to know each other. So again, make sure to check that out, and we will see you next time. Bye.